Hello, everybody. Sandra from Inspired Keys. It is 2:32 p.m. here in Melbourne, and today I am doing the live teaching in the afternoon for a change because Thursday mornings are sort of family mornings. Either I have some quiet or quality time with my husband, or like today, it was a little bit special. We went to check out the Praran market in Melbourne, and it was good, except that I kind of didn't bring this jacket, so I got really cold. If you're watching, please put in the chat box and let us know your name and where you are watching from. Today, I do have 2 questions prepared that I will answer from people who have asked me ahead of time. So if you are watching today and you have a worship keys question to ask, please do not wait. Just type your question into the chat box as early as possible so that I have enough time to read it. And if time permits, I will be answering at least one worship keys question. Alrighty, guys, I'm going to go straight on with my first question today. And the first question comes from Adam Reynolds. Adam is an Inspired Keys Academy member, and he says, one of my goals is to play in a variety of styles so that my songs sound different. I'm trying to better understand how to use arpeggios in songs. I can practice them in the same way that you practice scales, but that doesn't mean I know how to put them to use. I think it sounds really neat to do a quick arpeggio run during a song with either hand. Yeah, so this is what Adam is saying, guys. Basically, Adam is, he must have had some official piano teaching training before, because he knows what an arpeggio is. So if you are brand new and you have no idea what an arpeggio is, no worries, it's pretty simple. So guys, I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen right now. You should be able to see my screen, and you should also be able to see my Chords app, and you will hear my piano. Hopefully you can. Just let me know if you can't see or hear it properly in the chat. So when you learn piano as like a classical pianist, one of the components that you have to practice is technical work. Okay, so as a young girl, I kind of just grew up playing a lot of scales. So scales would be things like, like those things, right? Then you would also have scales of a few kinds, like that would be the chromatic scales. You also have, which is the contrary motion scales. So these are just scales of a few kinds, but then you also get some other figurations like broken chords. So broken chords could be, or it could be broken chords in this way. Right? So basically everything's sort of like chord based, but you break them up into individual notes, right? So next inversion, next inversion, next inversion, right? But then there's also this other kind of playing style called an arpeggio. An arpeggio goes specifically like this. Ah, interesting. My chordy. Ah, there we go. Phew. I'm so glad it did. I thought it just disconnected again. So yeah, an arpeggio goes like this. Okay, so basically I'm just using this is my right hand playing. I'm using fingers 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 5, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. Left hand as well. 5, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 5. So these are arpeggios. So we used to sort of have to learn them in different keys, in different chords. So hands together, C major going up. Then you would have minor ones as well, like G minor, arpeggio. So Adam is asking how we can use arpeggios in our worship keys playing, right? So this is what I have to say. Basically, I do feel that in general, worship chords even though they are sort of traditional chords 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I do not really like the way they sound if we use clean chords, okay? So by clean or classical chords, I would, for example, use chord 1. In the key of C major, chord 1 would be, right? So in the first place, I will probably not use a C, E, G chord 1 in worship music because it just sounds too clean, too classical, and too Mozart, right? So like what you would rather use is something that has a little bit more of a sus. So, or either a sus or an add, okay? So in this case, I would probably use this. So you would feel, oh wow, why would you want to use C and D next to each other? Because that's kind of like a clash. But this is the kind of open sound, especially formed from the D and the G, that forms this open sound that actually sounds really good in genres like pop and contemporary music, especially worship, pop, contemporary worship styles. So that's the kind of chord that I will use, okay, if it was chord 1. So then if you want to do an arpeggio on any chord, you would need to first form the basic shape of the chord, right? If my classical usual style of arpeggio was based on my basic clean C major chord like C, E, G, then my arpeggio will be C, E, G, and C, E, G again. And however many times you want to repeat it, you know, like however, you can just do 1,000 of them, or you could just stop at, you know, that's also a kind of arpeggio, or, right? That's also an arpeggio. But if my basic chord shape is now quite fundamentally different, it's, right? If I choose to use this chord shape, then my arpeggio will have to be based on this shape instead. So then, if I were to do an arpeggio, I will use this kind of an arpeggio shape, right? Where my E shifts down a step to the D. And that is what I will advocate. So, Adam, you were asking about how to use an arpeggio in a song, right? This is what I'll do. I'll definitely use a chord structure or shape that is more suitable to a worship pop contemporary style. So if you want to know more about what these chord structures are, go to inspiredkeys.com/awesome, because there are 2 videos in there, part 1 and part 2, where I share the awesome chord voicings that everybody should use in worship keys playing, because then you don't sound too clean like Mozart, and that's not what we want to sound like. We want to sound like pop contemporary styles, right? So that being a good replacement of, that's just one example for chord 1. So if I were to use arpeggios, besides not using the clean shape, but the contemporary shape, right? So then I will probably use it in a few ways, like what I personally really like to do is this kind of a shape structure. So that's 1, 2, 3, 5. That's holding on my fingers 1, 2, 3, and 5, holding onto those notes. And what I like to do is to use 1, 2, 3, and then I will invert and use 1, 2, 3, and then 5 to finish that top G, and then come back down 2, 3, 2, 1, and 3, 2, 1. So I like this sound a lot. Like, I just think it sounds great for even not just chord 1, right? If I were to have like a, yeah, basically I kind of just tried it with 4 different chords on the left hand, right? Like my bass line just went on 4 chords 1, 4, 6, and 5, and it all kind of sounds pretty good with this arpeggio shape. So I think this is perhaps the best arpeggio shape to use in worship keys. So now I'm just going to go deeper into answering Adam's question about when and how to use those arpeggio chords. Before I do that, though, I do want to give a shout out to Faith Apple. He says, hi, watching from Sierra Leone. This is beyond cool. Hello, Faith, all the way at Sierra Leone. And I also want to give a shout out to Fabian Solano, says, hi, watching from Mexico City. This is beyond cool. Thank you so much, Fabian, Faith. And if you're watching, anyone else watching, please give a little intro of your name, where you're watching from in the chat box on the right. And also, don't wait to ask your worship keys question, because if you have a question and you ask it right now, my reward for your participation and for you to take your precious time to do this is to answer your worship keys question, okay? So I'm just going into, let me just quickly stop my screen sharing for a minute and come back to Adam's question. So Adam says, I'm trying to better understand when and how to use arpeggio. So I've gotten to the point where I'm telling everybody to use the 5, 1, 2, and 5 kind of shape instead of a 1, 3, 5. Use a 1, 2, 5 kind of shape. By 1, 2, 5, I mean scale degree numbers, right? So now I'm going to give you some tips on how and when to use them. Because Adam says, I think it sounds really neat to do a quick arpeggio run, and I fully agree. So here are some places that I will recommend doing these arpeggio runs, okay? You could use an arpeggio to punctuate the end of a phrase. Okay, so what do I mean by punctuate the end of a phrase? So let me just see if I can quickly think of a song, because I didn't actually come prepared with a song necessarily. Let me just come back to my screen sharing. Okay, here I am again. And okay, so here, so if like I have a song that goes, okay, so I'm just going to use an example like Who You Say I Am from Hillsong, just because it's one of the latest numbers, right? And if I have a phrase, I could always punctuate the end of a phrase. And why the end? Because usually at the end of a phrase is where you have like an empty space in the music. And then that's where you could sort of create some fills to fill in the empty space so that your music doesn't sound so boring. So here's what you can do, right? Da 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 da. Right? So that's an example. Of course, that's where if you guys don't plan to do the so because that riff is pretty iconic riff for that song. So if you don't want to use that, you can always use a little kind of a quick little arpeggio interjection to just make your ending of a phrase a little bit more interesting. I mean, that's just one example of a phrase. There's so many different songs, so many different phrases. Try and experiment that. Try and use an arpeggio at the end of a phrase like that. I quite like using an arpeggio sometimes to punctuate the beginning of a section. So this is where it's a little bit more interesting. Oh gosh, I can't really think of a song. So guys, if you're watching this right now, if you could just give me a hand and let me know an example of a song, perhaps that would help me going. In the meantime, Pastor David Franklin's in the house. Hello, David. Great to have you again. And he says, good day, Sandra from the USA. Woohoo. Edgar John's also here. Edgar's in Cyprus. My goodness, this is so cool. We have an international audience, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. So yeah. Let's see, what's a good song that I can sort of use to punctuate the beginning of a phrase? Let's see. If I were to use Who You Say I Am again, okay, so You know what? I just thought of something. Yep. So we could use Who You Say I Am again. So this is where you go into the beginning of a section. So usually it would be sort of the beginning of verse 2. Why verse 2? Because it's not really the very beginning of a song yet, but then you are sort of trying to build up to a place of higher musical interest. Okay, so this is the interlude. So who am I? Na, 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 na. Yep. So I hope you caught what I did there. It was a little bit like a reverse arpeggio, or an arpeggio that goes downwards. So what I did was right. So instead of going up, I went. Yeah, so that's something I quite like to do at the beginning of a section. And quite usually it would be something like a verse 2, okay? So let me just give you a little bit more of a context. Maybe I'll go from a little bit before. Let's go from pretend this is chorus number 1. Da, 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 okay, here we go, verse 2. So I just did it again, right? So I did the first one being higher, like who am I? Yeah, so and then the other one was so once again, it's just at the point where you're about to come in for your verse 2, at that very moment, you could inject a little arpeggio there. That's something that I quite like to do, okay? So, yeah, I that's sort of 2 points right there. I think I have a third point. Let me just quickly look. Yeah, all right. And so that's sort of punctuating the beginning or the ending of a phrase. And then, of course, another place that I really like to use an arpeggio run would be typically towards the end of a song, guys. So at the end of a song, when the song's like coming to an, sort of a weak, call it in this church a trash can ending. So where you've got like lots of drum cymbals crashing and stuff. So let me just use the same song. Right? So yeah, wow, look at those chords. It just appears like a crazy, crazy pile of chords, but if it looks hard, but guys, it's just a bunch of C, Gs, and Ds, right? So once again, all I did was, right, and then I inverted that, but I used my sustain pedal to help hold it, right? And then I just changed my hand one more octave up, and then with a 5 on top. Right? So it just sounds fancy, but it's really a pile of the same thing again and again. I'm a child of God, yes, I am. Right? So at the end of that really high arpeggio run, right, you could also just kind of rumble a little bit more on your bass and right, and it's just a bunch of the 5s and the 1s and the 2s. So wow, I really hope that was helpful. That's really pretty much where I will use arpeggios. Will I use an arpeggio in the middle of a song? Maybe I might do it at like, let's see, if I'm really trying to build up to the climax of a song. So okay, so really, guys, I think by now you would realize that it's easy because there's just one kind of arpeggio that I'm preaching about that I think everyone should use, and that's the 5-1 and the 2, correct? So what I might do is, and this is in the context of playing in a band, So that means I've got like a guitar, I've got the basses, and they're all kind of playing loud. And I'm trying to build up into a real high. A typical section will be sort of the end of a bridge into the chorus. So maybe something like, okay, so same song, yeah, just because I can't think of any other song. So I am chosen. I should probably go on to my shared screen again. Thanks for waiting for me as I think, yeah? So, okay, sharing the screen again. And so, I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. The sun sets free. This is free indeed. I'm a child of... Yep, so I hope you saw what I did there, right? So that was like really going into a real high. So that was where I did another arpeggio run. Let's see if I can just do that one more time. I would probably do it at that speed. I mean, I was just entertaining the idea of possibly playing it at halving that speed. So I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Everyone sets free. You is free. Yeah, so I was just thinking that's probably how I might do it if I want to do it a little bit slower, like something like that, or you could just do the who you say I. How does the bridge go again? I am chosen, will take it. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Free. So you kind of need to plan when to start that arpeggio. So it's got to be I am who you say I am. One, and da 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 da. Yep. So you kind of need to plan the rhythms. You can't just be really random about it. Yeah. So rhythmic accuracy takes a little bit of planning as well. So I'm who you say I am. One and two and one and da 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 da. So it's kind of like semi-quaver rhythms, okay? I guess in the US you guys call semi-quavers eighth notes. No, 16th notes. Yeah. Never did theory in the US, okay? So 8th notes are quavers, 16th notes are semiquavers. So it's a 6/8 song, so 1 and 2 and 1 and da 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 da. So what's important, guys, is you can't just go, I want to use an arpeggio, and then you just kind of throw it out there. You need to plan when to use it. So sort of hear it in your head or even practice it at home. Yeah. You know, just practice and re-practice that little arpeggio thing that you plan to do so that when it's executed, guys, it's got to be executed to perfection. Or maybe if it's not perfection, just at least you got to be really well practiced. You can't just go, I'm going to throw out an arpeggio today and you've never worked on it before. Yeah, so just practice and jam with the recording. It should be fun practice. It shouldn't be like, dreading, you know, it should be fun for you. So I really hope that this was helpful. And at this point, I'm just going to check if anyone asked any questions. No questions yet. Okay, guys, if you're watching, please pop in a question and also let me know if you find this helpful. Adam, thank you so much for asking this question. I pretty much can't think of anything else to say about arpeggios because I don't necessarily use a ton of arpeggios except at those moments I talked about. So thank you so much, Adam. I'm going on to answer another question, and this is from Inspired Keys Academy member Rebecca Cruz. So Rebecca shares, playing sheet music and accompanying someone singing are like night and day, okay? So she is used to playing sheet music, but not so much when it comes to accompanying somebody, okay? So she says, I never got any training for that, so it has always been a struggle for me. Reading the music is not a problem, which shows that Rebecca is good as an eye musician, but playing with enough rhythm to make this playing sound interesting, however, has been a struggle. Okay, so I'm going to take a moment to address what it takes to accompany somebody, okay? So now we're talking about, we're talking pianists here, we're playing the piano sound. Well, it could be electric piano, EP, it could be piano, but it's primarily sort of piano kind of percussive sounds, okay? And we're talking about accompanying somebody, right? So it is quite a different thing, guys, if you play something that's just sort of by yourself and you're just playing from sheet music. You could play anytime you want because you're by yourself, and this is sort of like a solo thing, right? But if as a classical pianist you ever have to do a duet or a trio or an ensemble like a quartet or in an orchestra, right? It's a different ballgame because you're not alone anymore. You are working with somebody. So you guys have to be in sync in music. You can't sort of decide to speed up. They can't decide to speed up. You all have to be playing together. Otherwise, it's just going to sound like pure chaos, right? So I do have some tips when it comes to ensemble musicianship. So in this case, well, ensemble sounds very classical because it sounds like a violin sonata. But really, if it's a piano and a singer or a full worship band, like a full worship band and a piano, that's all ensemble because we're all not just by ourselves, right? We're playing with somebody else. So then we have to pay attention to how we sound as a team. So the very first thing that I have to say will be to ensure that your tempo is correct. So tempo meaning speed of the song. So if you're ever accompanying somebody, number one, you want to make sure that your speed of the song is correct. Because if you're a little bit too fast or you're a little bit too slow, the entire song kind of starts sounding a little bit wrong and you can't really sing to it, okay? And so what's a great way to practice? Practice with the recording, right? People base everything off the recording right now. So you got to do your due diligence and go practice with the recording until it sort of becomes second nature and you can sing it, you can clap to it, it's innate. You could just kind of reproduce a song at the actual speed. So you want to get to that level before you even say yes to accompanying somebody. And then the second tip is to ensure that you can play fluently, or another word for fluently is continuously, without stopping the music to think what's next or without arriving late. So I was working with someone, one of my students, because I'm a piano teacher as well, and I was just working on a song with a student, and what I noticed about this student was that he was struggling to play on time, right? So let's just pretend the chords are like Who You Say I Am Again, right? So it was kind of like, right? So you hear that little moment where there was hesitation and then the chord arrived. It was correct, but it kind of felt like it was stumbled upon and then it was late as well. You cannot afford to be late, guys. So you want to be really able to be fluent. So in your brain, you have this metronome click going like tick tock tock tick tock tock tick tock tock. Or if metronomes are boring, just turn on Hillsong and let them play with you, right? But you got to play together and be able to play fluently and continuously. So this requires a lot of pre-thinking, right? Your brain is constantly thinking what's ahead. So if you're new to this, you really got to exercise the whole art of preparation where you're playing one thing, but your brain's actually thinking what's next, what's next, what's next, right? So if I'm doing, okay, next one's 5. Next one's 6. Next one's 5 and 4. Next one's 1. So my brain's constantly at least a step ahead, and my brain also doesn't just think in terms of 1, 4, and 5, but my brain actually sort of hears the chord. I have that brain, that sound going on in my head. I know exactly where to go, and then my brain then tells my fingers to get ready to go there, and everyone's sort of really poised to arrive on time. We don't want to be early. We don't want to be late. We want to be exactly on time when it comes to playing music and playing chords. and accompanying somebody, okay? It's a different thing if it's like, you know, showing up for an appointment, right? Or showing up for your worship rehearsal. Sometimes it's good to be early so you could prepare for stuff and set up things. But in this case, in music, you cannot be early, you cannot be late, you gotta be exactly on time. So that's another tip for you. You gotta practice, ensure your tempo is correct, ensure you can play fluently. And by fluently, I mean continuously arriving on time, no hesitation, no mistakes, and no arriving late, okay? The next thing you want to be able to do is you might want to ensure that you can provide a pulse. How do you provide a pulse? Okay, so this is probably a little bit different if you are playing in a band, because sometimes in a band you've got the drummer going, you've got the acoustic guitar going, dum, taka, taka, dum, taka, taka, right? So they're all kind of setting a pulse for you. So maybe you don't have to do a, because that might be a bit too much going on in a band context. You've got the acoustic guitar doing that, and then you yourself are kind of banging away on the piano. That's a bit too heavy. You may not need to do that in a full band. But if you're serving in a cell group, right, in a small little worship team, and maybe it's just one piano, maybe it's a piano and a guitar, maybe then the piano kind of needs to take on leadership by setting the pulse so that people know what speed the song is in, right? So if you have a brand new song and then you just kind of go like, nobody's gonna know how to sing it. Maybe your worship leader is a very strong musician, so he or she could just go, who am I that the highest king would run? Right, that's probably fine for them. But then what if there are some people who just need a sense of pulse, right? You need a sense of the speed. You want to have a sense of, when do I come in? What's the speed of, sometimes we forget the speed of a song, right? Especially if you have a massive worship set, like 10 songs, you might just go, how fast is this song again? So as the pianist, because we have such a versatile instrument where we could play percussive sounds, and pianos are percussive because the mechanism of a piano sound made is actually the hammer hitting the string. So then we got to make use of the percussive element of our instrument and set the pulse and play the pulse for them so that people know how to come into the song. So then you need to practice so that you could do something that's not just a hold and hopefully someone comes in at the right time. But you got to go set the leadership, set the pace, and go. 1, 2, 3, and 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and 2, 3. Who am I that the highest king will die for me? Right, so that's an example of how I will set a pulse for my singer. So that's another thing you need to do and be mindful of when you accompany somebody else. You also, another tip would be, you want to practice and play the riffs in the song to make your accompaniment interesting. Because, you know, you could very well have, you know, just your pulse, and then you could just keep going on and on and on again with the pulse, but then that kind of gets boring. So you might want to practice doing the riffs of the song. And the thing about riffs, right? So like, okay, once again, the iconic riff of Who You Say I Am is now, if you actually analyze the band dynamics of the song, that riff was taken care of by the electric guitarist, right? So if you have an electric guitarist in the team who's doing that riff, you don't have to take care of it. You just don't have to play anything at that moment. But if you're playing in a cell group, a small group context, and you're a solo piano, then you might need to practice that riff so that you sound interesting and you sound quite like the recording, and everyone kind of falls back to, yeah, I know that song because I've heard it done by Hillsong this way, right? So if you don't do the riff, it's just going to be a lot more boring. Like, I'm a child of God, yes I am. Na, na, na. Right, so that's not doing the riff. It's kind of just chord, 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 boring. But if you can play the riff, it's going to just really make everything more interesting. Like, I'm a child of God, yes I am. Oh, the sun. So So then if you really want to do that and up your level of playing by playing someone else's riff, it's supposed to be electric guitarist, but because you don't have an electric guitarist, you need to practice that riff so that your music sounds interesting and you're providing the fullest possible backing track possible. You're the only one. If you are the only instrument, then you have to really try and supply all the voices as much as possible. So my very last tip here is to ensure that you listen and look at the singer to keep in sync. Okay, so looking away from your keyboard is a very necessary skill if you are playing in a group, in an ensemble where you are not by yourself. You're not making music by yourself, you're making music as a team, then you all have to flow together. So it's all about being a live musician, right? That's the whole point. That's why we're not encouraging the whole world to just start playing multi-tracks, right? Because the element of live music is that it can be flexible. We could repeat the chorus another 2 times if the Holy Spirit leads us to do that. And then the whole idea is to be flexible, but to look up and check where the direction is, right? So there are some worship leaders who go like, I am definitely going to do 2 choruses, 2 verses, and we can sort of pre-rehearse everything and just, there's no need to look around. We're just going to stick to this format. And then there are some worship leaders who go like, you got to look at my hand signal. I might just do chorus again and again and again. You never know how many times they're doing it. I might go on to the bridge. I might go on to drop. I might want you to build. So then I think if you work with someone who's that flexible, Rebecca, you gotta go practice till you can look away from the keyboard, even if it's just a little bit, so that you could look and check where we're going. Are we building up next? Are we going to chorus again? Are we finishing the song? Are we finishing on a high? Are we finishing on a low? There's a lot that needs to be communicated during the worship set itself. So guys, it's pretty important to practice till you're pretty confident and independent of staring at the keyboard. So if you can do that, that's awesome. If you can't, then you got to practice looking up, okay? And that's why I like the Everlasting 1 and 5. At this point, I saw Manyin, Jorge, I think it's Jorge Miranda. Jorge says, are you married? My answer is yes. Manyin Lam says, hi, Sandra from Manyin in Hong Kong. Manyin, awesome to see you again. Guys, if you have a worship keys question, please type that in the chat box right now, because I will be finishing my teaching really soon. And if there are no questions, I will just have to go. But if there are questions, I will look at answering them. So guys, I was going to conclude with how the Everlasting 1 and 5 is awesome. Why is it awesome? It's awesome because it makes your playing really easy, especially for the right hand, right? So my right hand pretty much just needs to focus on, and I'll probably just turn over to my screen share at the moment so you can see what I am playing. Yep, so let's turn this on. Okay, so guys, see, if you have the Everlasting 1 and 5, assuming we're in the key of C major again, you pretty much just need to stay around the 1 and the 5 almost all the time. So see what I'm doing here? I'm just kind of like da 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 da. And if you notice, my right hand's just pretty much sitting around at the same area. I am not doing fancy, crazy stuff like na 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 na. Right, so that's not good in 2 ways. Firstly, it's harder for you because you got to jump around so much, and then the second thing that's not good is the voicing. It's all over the place. It's not still enough. It's very distracting. So I do not advocate playing that way because it's harder and it doesn't sound so good. Whereas Everlasting 1 and 5 is easy and it sounds great. And then it frees up your right hand to just pretty much stay around. Your left hand's the only thing that moves around because the bass line needs to be correct. The bass note needs to be correct at that moment. And then you just have one thing to really have to think about. That's your left hand. Your right hand's on the 1 and the 5 all the time. And your eyes can just look up and go look at the worship leader. What's the worship leader doing? What's the music director saying? How's the congregation looking? You're a spiritual musician, guys. You're not just like you play for yourself, you play for your team leader. You are playing for the church. You're playing for the congregation. People are coming to you in this church to seek refreshment from God, right? People are coming to renew their spirits, right? So we have to be spiritually discerning. We're looking at the audience. We're looking at the congregation. How do they look? Are they participating? And that's all the fun of being a live musician. So Rebecca, thank you so much for asking your question about the difference between playing sheet music and accompanying somebody, and these tips about what we have to take note of to play as an accompaniment for someone singing. I really hope that you guys who watched it find it helpful as well. At this point, I'm just going to quickly look at my chat box. This is Bruce. Hello, Bruce from Hong Kong. Bruce is an Inspired Keys Academy member. Welcome, Bruce. Will this video be online? Yes, it will be available as a replay once I am done with this live video. So guys, I am about to conclude this video. If you have a worship keys question that you want to ask about anything at all, you are very welcome to ask right now. But before I go, and while waiting for any worship keys questions to be typed in, I do want to invite everybody into the Inspired Keys Academy if you are looking to improve in your worship keys playing. So let's have a look. I'm just giving you a little tour of what it's like inside the Inspired Keys Academy. So this is our main Academy page. Once you get in, you will see a lot of courses, a lot of forums. And if you were to just come and click on courses, and that's loading over here, all the courses that I've ever created are all parked in there. So here's just a sneak preview of all the different topics that I have covered, that we've covered over here. A lot of these topics are based on requests from members. So you could request for something if you don't find any courses that are sort of directly meeting your needs at the moment. So I've got something on how to record your self-play, because in the Academy, we're all about sharing our own playing and putting it out there and getting feedback. And that's just a really quick way, a really great way to improve as a pianist or as a keyboardist. So I have courses about suspension licks, warm-ups, playing at a steady tempo, everlasting 1 and 5. I talked about that just now. How to use chord voicing is also something I mentioned in today's teaching. 7th chords, how and when to use them, mastering chords, voice leading. And you can just see this is like just the first page, but I've got 2 pages worth of lessons here, and I do want to show you 2 of the latest, newest courses, and that's the complete, very basic main stage course. So you can access the handouts, and you can also watch all of my teaching right over here, all the videos in detail on how I use main stage. And the other big brand new course that I created that's brand new in the Inspired Keys Academy is the 100 chord progressions that you can identify. So chords can be recognized by ear. I've got all these teaching videos grouped according to exercises. So exercise 1, it's just major chords. They're in triad shapes. So it sort of gets progressively a little more difficult, and you can access the handouts, the worksheets, the answers, all of them are in there. Also, once you join the Inspired Keys Academy, you can also join the Facebook group. So I just wanted to show everybody how our Facebook group looks like. It's right here, Inspired Keys Academy Facebook, members only Facebook group. And once you join, you could post your questions in here. You could participate and answer other people's questions. You can post an intro of yourself and see other people's intros and get to know each other, help each other out, encourage each other in our journey as worship keyboardists. Post your playing here and get exclusive announcements. So basically, it's a place I've set up to help us grow to fastest as worship keyboardists. And if you are interested, guys, I am doing a limited time $1 trial for you to explore the Inspired Keys Academy for 2 whole weeks, okay? So if you are interested in that, you are very welcome to put into the discount code dollar trial at checkout, and you can go to inspiredkeys.com/join to join the Academy, and I would love to see you inside over there. I would love to just find out where you are at and help you out where you're at. And because it's all a really alive and living kind of a membership group, so you could explore, and if you feel like, hey, you know, the courses are too easy for me or too difficult, and there are all kinds of us who join. There are people who are brand new beginners. There are people who are not even keyboardists. They're sort of guitarists or drummers who join because they want to learn the keyboard. And then there are people who play for many years, trained classically, but now they want to play in worship styles. So all kinds of people are in there, and you are welcome, whatever context you're in. And so I welcome you with open arms. Just go to inspiredkeys.com/join. I'm going to type that in here as well so you can see it, and also use the discount code dollar trial. That gives you 2 weeks where you can explore the Academy, all access, cancel anytime, no obligations, for just $8. And thank you so much, Pasha David, for your encouragement. Great teaching. Thanks. You are very welcome. And I suppose if there are no questions that are asked live, I will then go, because it's about time for me to take a sip of water and also to answer more Academy members' questions and prepare more courses for our Academy. So I would love to see you inside. Join us if you are ready to take your worship keys playing to the next level. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow. Do go to inspiredkeys.com/schedule to see when I am on again. I will be on again tomorrow, and I will see you in our live video. Remember to ask your worship keys questions. You can post your question to me at Sandra@inspiredkeys.com in advance, or you could ask at our live teaching so that I could answer it as I see your question in the chat box. Thanks so much, everybody. And oh, wait, Bruce, you said hang on. So I am hanging on, but you do want to type it in real quick. Let's see, what else do I want to announce to everybody? I am in the process of, okay, Bruce, I'm waiting for you, okay? So I'm just making this announcement. I am in the process of creating a ultimate FAQ list, because the thing is, when I ask people, why did you join the Academy? What do you want to learn? Like, what's the biggest worship keys question that you are asking? And people are asking me the same things, right? I'm getting questions like, how do you play by ear? How do you improvise? How do I make my playing sound more interesting? So I've created like an ultimate frequently asked questions, and under every question I am going to give a series of videos, teachings, courses that I have created, and you can access this ultimate frequently asked questions inside the Inspired Keys Academy. I'm working on that at the moment, so stay tuned. I will be announcing that really soon once it's ready. Bruce says, will this be available in 2 weeks? My daughter is interested. Now, I'm not quite sure what you mean by will this be available, but if you're talking about live teaching, I do plan to come on here to teach live every day for probably as much as possible within the month of June, every day with the exception of Sunday being a Sabbath, or at least I want it to be a Sabbath for myself. So Bruce, let's take this conversation inside the Academy, because you are in the Academy now, and we can chat inside Facebook. And so you can ask me over there, and I'll be very happy to furnish you with answers. In the meantime, guys, I'll see you tomorrow, and I'll go have a sip of my coffee. Thank you, and God bless, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Bye.